All right, guys. Good morning. Back with another video. Dr. Pearlman. I think you're going to be happy with the content of this video. We're getting into it. Peptides, peptides, peptides. All about peptides today. It's going to be all about growth hormone. It's going to be all about retatrutide. It's going to be all about trezepatide, if I'm saying that correctly. AKA, we're going to look at your dual agonist, your Zepbounds. We're going to look at your we'll just briefly reference, semaglutide, the original, the OG, GLP-1, and then we'll talk about this, glucagon agonist to the triple threat, the retatrutide. We're going to talk about me taking these peptides and compounds over the last 7 weeks now, I believe, and my own personal thoughts and experiences so I can share with you what I think would be best. First thing, as a disclaimer, seriously, as a disclaimer, please, 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 go to somebody. It's, and typically nowadays, we're not talking about thousands of dollars for like a save my life functional medicine doctor. We're probably talking about a few $100s of blood work, consultation, paying for whatever the peptides are. And typically, just as an example, again, being totally transparent, when you're buying from a research purpose site, you might pay $150, $160, $180 a month for something like 5 to 6 milligrams of retatrutide, which will last you if you're taking, less than a milligram a week. And then if you take something from a compounding pharmacy, less than 2 milligrams of something like trezepatide, again, a sterile, compounded, FDA oversighted, compounding pharmacy where you're getting really good stuff. We're talking like $140, maybe $150 at max a month for those doses. And if you utilize less, it's going to stretch out even further. And those are just the weight loss peptides. Things like BPC 157. You could be getting really good BPC 157 for your spot, inflamed musculoskeletal tendinous ligamentous injuries for $150 a month or something like that. Again, how much do you use is up to you. It's up to trusted protocols, and really comes down to that last part of the disclaimer. Find somebody who knows what they're doing. Don't just go out there and like trial by error. One is, yes, it's expensive when you're, buying a million different things. If I told you how many non-reconstituted vials of things, of peptides, Simax, tesamorelin, samorelin, ipamorelin, and various things that I have in my cabinet, you'd be like, wow, that's a lot of money. Yeah, those are things that really are just sitting in my cabinet. I guess theoretically I could, sell it to somebody, but if it's been there sitting, even reconstituted for 3 months and it's lost any kind of potency, then I'm just a dickhead, trying to pass my stuff off. It's not how I am, and I wouldn't want that for you. Another thing I'll say is, if you don't have somebody that knows what they're doing, then you don't know what metabolic labs to test for. You don't know really, what your goals are if you're kind of like in the dark, and then you won't have a good result. Which, last part of this preface before I just dive into like all the information, is you've got to have a goal in mind. When you hear guys like Arnold Schwarzenegger talk about the vision and because he could see it clearly, the results would come. And that might sound a little cliche, but to be honest with you, what I've noticed with me and my journey from getting over back surgery at the end of 23 to trying to lose weight and start exercising again in the last year and a half, to actually getting a routine that worked, it was very clear in the last, say 6 months of what it needed to look like. And by programming better, by working with somebody, by really making an emphasis to pay the money and get the chiropractic that really works for me from the guy that knows what he's doing best, and then a micro-dosing strategy of some of these compounds after learning that non-micro-dosing can sometimes give you those unwanted, undesirable effects when it comes to, again, like dosing, and not really knowing what you're doing and being unaware of your windows of opportunity to inject certain things. It really goes south. So work with somebody. You could drive yourself crazy and cost yourself thousands of dollars, or even make yourself kind of sick, maybe even a lot of sick, if you're doing it without the guidance. So there we go. Those are all the prefaces out of the way. Most people take 10 minutes to get going, so I'm at 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Here we go. I would say it like this. Tesamorelin, HGH secretagogue, human growth hormone secreting peptide, or growth hormone secreting hormone. The thing is, this stimulates from the pituitary. It's going to go, downstream, and it's going to mimic, or it's going to enhance the pulsating of human growth hormone. And all I'm going to say about this is if you are someone who's overweight that has already sort of a 5.3, 5.5, 5.7 A1C, or if you're like me and you have like a 96, 97, 99, resting glucose on a fairly consistent scale, you probably want to stay away from something like a tesamorelin. It is far too strong, and it has insulin sensitivity antagonist-like effect, especially they say in the beginning, but the reality is it's danced around often that tesamorelin or things like simorelin, not ipamorelin, that's a little bit different, but I don't want to really speak on it. There's a lot of videos around why it's kind of weak. It's more of the ghrelin, agonist. It stimulates the ghrelin receptor in the stomach and then works kind of upstream to kind of tickle, if you will, a little bit of, human growth hormone secretion, but not like tesamorelin, which a lot of people that I know personally will use that to substitute from their, pharma grade HGH while they're also using testosterone and building muscle. And that's just it. If you're not partitioning, your energy properly, meaning, your glucose, your insulin, your the food you're taking in, if you're not in certain fasted windows, if you're not using something like tesamorelin very responsibly, your glucose will rise, your fasting insulin will rise. It's an absolute associative effect of not just the IGF-1, which is insulin-like growth factor 1, and these have detrimental effects to people like me and maybe a lot like you who have pre-diabetic like lab work or tendencies, if you will, of what our body looks like and feels like, with a higher fasting insulin, a higher ability to be able to grab on and put on weight very easily. And I would say that if you're using even the recommended doses by people like Dr. Seeds out there or various other books that are about peptides and guides and videos on the internet, I think you'll actually have, especially if you're using it consistently, like they talk about taking 2 milligrams a day. I think if that was somebody out there like me, that you would end up having a very negative effect after using it for a little bit. So why would you be on tesamorelin? It's because you got blood work and you know that you're either a candidate, whether it's teetering on the edge of pre-diabetes or diabetes, or if you, had a body scan and you saw that you did have visceral fat, then you would want to utilize tesamorelin, and maybe you should do up to your 2 milligrams a day. But certainly I would be looking at something more along the lines of every other day. I might even think if they're recommending 2 milligrams on all these, ChatGPT or any of these other sites, upwards of 4 milligrams, then I certainly would be doing something like 1.5 for 3 days and then taking a few days off. And then I would titrate down to 0.75. Again, this is not medical advice if I haven't said it yet. This is just an example. So if it's a 2 milligram dose recommended, most places I'd probably do a milligram. And I would probably stay on a milligram for 2 weeks every other day, something like that, and monitor. If I was waking up too bloated, I would really be very cautious about what's happening to you, because there's no need for you to have a fasting insulin like I did about a month, 5 weeks into taking tesamorelin very consistently and having a resting insulin of 30 and a IGF-1 level of 349. And then 2 weeks later, after just getting it out of my system and eating good and doing a lot of walking. Honestly, that's all I did for 2 weeks, walk and get that out of my system. And my fasting insulin was a 2 and my IGF-1 level was a 246. So, in a much healthier looking, trimmed up version of me. Okay, that's tesamorelin. If you don't have visceral fat, there's probably very little reason for you to use it. If you were thinking about using it, it would only be because you really wanted the benefits of having a stronger pulse of growth hormone, which you wouldn't know anything if you didn't get the blood work. You wouldn't know anything if you didn't get the body scan. And you certainly would need to not eat at least 3, maybe even up to 4 hours before using it, and then dosing at night, and then waking up. And I would be very, what's the word I'm looking for? Intentional about my eating of breakfast and my gym routine, and I'd be lifting some serious weights and I'd be doing some serious training if I was on something like tesamorelin, and that's where I'll leave that. As for trizepatide, semaglutide, and retatrutide, guys, there's 100 billion videos out there and everyone spits out the exact same numbers and stats. I'm not going to do it. So semaglutide, the GLP-1, it's real simple. It has the strongest affinity to suppress your appetite. If you're using the recommended doses, which I personally think is way too high to start and way too high to titrate up, as they say, in the mainstream medical world. So if you're going to your doctor and they have decided and you have agreed, or you have decided and your doctor has agreed that you're a good candidate for using something like just a GLP-1, semaglutide, or Ozempic, then God bless you. Your appetite's gonna go away. You're gonna lose a lot of weight, and whatever the side effects are with this pancreatitis and bowel obstructions and possible other type of thyroid possible interactions that could lead to cancer, or why, if you had thyroid cancer in the familial history of, sometimes this makes a red flag right there for some providers. You've got to understand these are some of the risks. There's probably more risks, but I would say that bone density, muscle loss, all these things I've said in videos of the past, but I'm not here to do that today. I'm just simply here to tell you, if you want to control your eating, semaglutide, especially because it's very inexpensive now at the pharmacies and the compounding pharmacies, and you hop on with the right provider and determine, again, it's for you and you need to control your eating, then that's what it's going to do. Ooh, here comes lots of horns driving by. Now, what about tirzepatide, dual agonist, something that's going to be very much a controlled sort of insulin signal while the glucose is getting to like a particular level, and you want something with a little bit less of that GLP-1 bang appetite suppressive effect than tirzepatide, or I believe, tirzepatide is Zepbound, if I'm not mistaken. And so those are going to be a little bit less intense, like a little bit less thud, reducing the appetite, but newsflash, it's going to suppress the appetite. And even though I know I was dancing around a lot, sorry, I got distracted because of the noise outside. The tirzepatide, I personally just had a dose of it last week, and I can tell you, when it comes to appetite suppression or feeling full fast or being disinterested in food, for me personally, being on retatrutide for the last 6 weeks at 1 milligram, then tirzepatide was absolutely just, it was like an outer world experience of being disinterested in food. Like, it just killed my appetite. Completely and totally killed it. Not drown the food noise. I consider that something different, because what was weird was I actually had more sugar cravings being on tirzepatide, and maybe it's just because I wasn't getting enough calories in 1 week being on just under 2 milligrams than I did for almost 6 weeks on retatrutide. And I don't know the exact cause of this. I'm going to speculate that it was simply not getting enough calories, and I was just so disinterested in food that I was actually getting to the point where I was bored in moments of not being productive. It did give me stomach cramping. It did give me GI upset. And even though there is an association with chicken that I ate, without getting into too much detail, because I had 2 meals out of 4 days, and there's chicken, and you can imagine, but let's just assume that it was tirzepatide that gave me the unwanted reactions. Then just flat out being, again, transparent and honest, this was from a compounded pharmacy, the tirzepatide, from a place that I really trust, where the BPC 157 was so much better than anything else I've ever injected into my body. I mean, within moments of injecting this at the site of inflammation of my SI joints and back, a little pinch subcutaneous injection through the back with the insulin needle. We were doing about 250 to 500 micrograms. I was doing 500 micrograms in the morning, 250 micrograms in the evening of my BPC 157. That was what I chose from, yes, doctor prescribed. That's right, I had a physician prescribe me from the compounding pharmacy. Let me tell you something. The way this BPC 157 made me feel, I will never take another research purpose BPC 157. That's me personally, because that's how effective it was. I'm going to start telling all of my patients, all of my clients, that if they want the real stuff, then we got to consult with my nurse practitioner to get that, because the bottom line, it was that much more effective. I'm just, again, being transparent and honest. And with that one, you could say, yeah, I have something to sell you. If you're in Texas and you want me to be your provider, or you want my wife to be your provider, and you want to feel this BPC 157, which is better than any aspirin I've taken in recent months, for those I don't know, probably about a 8 to 12 hour effect of not feeling much pain or being super high functional on that BPC 157, then I found the place. And you could say the same thing for the tirzepatide, because I mean, it's unbelievable. Like I just couldn't eat. Like I was eating 200 calories at a time of protein and carb, a little bit of fat. That's what I've been doing. I mean, I went from 190 pounds ish, probably at the end of June, July, August, September, October. Now we're mid-October, getting close to the end of October. Mid-October, 2025. I'm 170 pounds. I mean, clearly leaner. This has been the easiest weight cut ever. That, you know, cut weight, whatever. I don't even like to use terms like that, but I remember when I went keto at the end of chiropractic school, I ran 3.5 miles a morning. On a bad morning, I'd run 2.5. I would do calisthenics any chance I got. I was drinking bulletproof coffee all the time. I had almost no carbohydrates, and I was hungry all the time, which is, newsflash, a big part of what goes on with a lot of us who want to take these compounds. We're hungry all the time. And it's just unbelievable the way it's been, even since Retatrutide, which we're going to get into last. The cravings are just gone. It's just easier. I mean, do you have your moments? Yeah, you have your moments. At the end of a 6 or 7 day cycle, you're like, oh, I'm hungry again. Oh, shoot, I can't wait to inject Retatrutide. I can't wait to inject my Trezepatide. I mean, have you not seen South Park, the end of obesity? It's pretty accurate. I mean, it is pretty freaking accurate. If you should watch that if you haven't yet. I was like Randy. I was like Randy at the end of South Park when it came to Trezepatide. I mean, guys, I just couldn't eat. By day 2, it just couldn't eat. You know, before I get into Retatrutide, like, would I want to be on Retatrutide versus Trezepatide? The reality is, if I was going to take one microdosing over the course of, let's just say, 3 months, because I'm not going to take this for the rest of my life, I want to have certain goals in mind. I want to hit my goals. My goal is to be about 12% body fat. We're going to test soon. I don't want to tell you what it was based off of something that's too old, because I didn't get a body scan in the last year. I had a body scan a year ago, and I was about 26% body fat. It's the highest body fat I've been in like a very long time for me. If I had to guess now, I'm probably 16% body fat, maybe 14% body fat, but I want to be, 12% is where I'd like to be. And I want to confirm that I never really had a lot of visceral fat anyways, but I want all this like love handle stuff that I have residual gone. It's very close to being gone now. I want to fit in a size 32, where I used to be when I graduated chiropractic school. And I mean, I was lean. Like, those are my goals. And I'm doing it because I just want to face facts like everybody else wants to face facts. Like, I want to look good naked. I want to feel good naked. I want my wife to find me attractive. I want to be attracted to my wife, right? I mean, I'm just, again, too much of this taboo stuff, I'm not going to tolerate it. I want my friends to be like, hey, Yoni, you look great. What are you doing? Like, I want to look the part when I'm telling people to like play the part. So many people come to me, come to my wife, and really it turns into a conversation of like, oh, I know I need to lose weight. Okay, if that's weight. What if it's, oh, I know I'm inflamed because I'm eating sugar and my diet, and I want to get on this. I know I need to stop drinking alcohol. It's everybody has their vices. And it's when they really don't fess up and almost like aren't just honest with themselves or their provider about like what their goals are or what they're doing to prevent them from their goals. Like, I can say so many different peptides and compounds and experiences and different protocols that I've used are the only reason that I'm still as active as I am to this point, to not just transform my body, but to like have a level of confidence or certainty that it will help other people once they stop with the excuses and the bad habits. Now, I didn't mean to get off on a tangent, but what I'm really trying to say is like, I know what my goals were or are when it comes to what I want for my body and the reasons I want it for my body. And by the way, just because I said vain things or vanity-based things like I want to look good naked and I want my wife to be attracted to me, I don't want to have a fasting insulin of 20. I don't want to have a fasting glucose of 100. I don't want to have high blood pressure. I don't want to have cardiopulmonary problems or sleep apnea and leave this world too early. I've seen death within my family. I've seen suffering and obesity within my own family. I've seen patients who have had very poor metabolic health that have died prematurely, and I've seen the repercussion. I've seen people be very frustrated and angry and really suffer with a lot of life choices and habits that probably could have been better if they had more self-confidence. I'm just being, again, transparent and honest. And without, again, going on too long, now let's talk about retatrutide, the triple agonist. And here's the deal. Retatrutide most definitely did drown out the food noise, whereas tirzepatide made me almost completely disinterested to eat. And I don't want to say made me feel sick. Yes, I did feel sick at the end of a couple of meals. When I say end of a couple of meals, that was me putting the salmon back into the refrigerator covered in foil after like what usually would be an easy 8 ounces to put down with rice. And that happened multiple times in the last week on tirzepatide. Today is Tuesday morning and I'm supposed to dose tomorrow. Newsflash, I'm going to take a week off of a weight loss peptide of any kind before the following week, which then I'll titrate down by at least half of the dose. And the reason for this is I don't want my body being overreactive to too high a dose after, coming back down to normal or running on its like normal metabolic function, if you will. I want my pancreas and my liver and I want my, GI to be, pretty back to like this normal, regular baseline. Even if it means I'm more hungry, it means I'm going to have to exercise a little bit more discipline for a week. It means I'm going to have to, know that the eating is going to have to still look a certain way. And if I'm hungry or bored, reference it, oh, Jen, I'm hungry, I'm bored. And then what? If worst case scenario is if I couldn't control myself, you bet your ass I'd take some retatrutide and I'd put in, 0.5 milligram. That's just the way that I would do it, me personally, with my experience now. It doesn't mean that I want to be reliant on it. It means that we got to come to a point where we're not reliant on the drugs. We want to come to the point where we used it with a clear goal in mind, achieve that goal and say, okay, well, now how am I going to maintain this goal? This isn't like going to the party, to the pool party or to the wedding and you looked good and then you went back to old habits and shit just like packed on pounds or liver function or pancreatic function, went into just, a whole other class of being in trouble. Like you don't want that. Because if you did, you've defeated the entire purpose of utilizing these compounds to be performance enhancers, aka health enhancers, and staying healthy. And back to retatrutide, for the last time I promise, killed the food noise. Cravings definitely went down. My appetite was still there. Basically, I ate all the healthy food and it allowed me to eat the healthy food. And even though my bowel movements changed, it wasn't anything like what tirzepatide did, which was basically make it near impossible to poo on some consistent basis and had a little bit of the diarrhea symptoms. Although again, could be some association with chicken, but I don't want to top down too far with it. Glucagon additional agonist in the retatrutide is definitely something to behold, and I believe it does have you better thermogenesis at rest. I believe you are utilizing and partitioning fuel at rest better than just what tirzepatide is doing. But some people think that could maybe maintain lean mass with retatrutide. I don't necessarily think so. I think that in theory, the tirzepatide would be the thing that retains lean mass better if all things were equal, because you don't have more calories burning at rest, both fat and muscle. I think that there has to be a more intentional eating sort of period where you're, I don't want to say force feeding, but making sure you get enough calories, maybe if you're even eating 6 to 7 times a day with tirzepatide of small meals, especially focus on protein, of course, and your micronutrients and your minerals that you need, so that you, and vitamins and micronutrients, minerals, so that you can then go and lift weights, preserve muscle, things of this nature, bone density, all the other good things. I think a lot of it comes down to potency, to be completely honest with you. With retatrutide, you really don't know where you're getting what you're getting, especially, it's not FDA approved yet. You could say, oh no, but I know because I see and I feel. We don't know how much of it's placebo. We don't know how much of it is, a non-potent dose versus an overly potent dose. We don't know what the ratios are. We don't really know. You can test it yourself. There are companies that do this. There are kits that do this. There are some people that are biochemists out there that know way more than me. You all can do this. But I will tell you that if I got something from a compounded sterile pharmacy that has the oversight, like where I get the things here local in Dallas, Texas, I have the utmost confidence that this is exactly what I'm getting and that it's working the way it's working, and the results speak for themselves over the last few years and working with many people, again, through my wife. When I say working with people, my wife is the nurse practitioner. My wife is the provider. She is the prescriptive authority. I'm simply a coach along the way, and I have, of course, made myself a lab rat, because the bottom line is I would never, ever, ever, under any circumstance, ever advise anyone to do something that I either haven't done personally or know many people have done and had a great amount of success with. or failure so I can advise. I used to think that, GLP-1 and these drugs were cheating. I don't think they're cheating anymore. I think they are what they are. They're performance enhancers. So that's, if you want to take it any which way you want, I mean, that means, yeah, Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire, I don't think they cheated. I think in a sport where everybody cheated, I think they were just already the best, and then they enhanced it even that much more. And I think that if you have a problem with food control, and that if you are walking around being diagnosed as someone who's pre-diabetic or type 2 diabetes, or if you're somebody who has sleep apnea, but at times, like, you've lost weight in the past, your sleep apnea got better, just another example. Mental acuity, being frustrated, being, having short-tempered or something of that nature, these drugs are going to work in manners to make all of the underlying cause of insulin and high blood glucose and diabetic like sickness on a spectrum, cardiovascular, microvascular health on a spectrum better, then you use them under a doctor's supervision. Why? Because it's really easy to want to do everything on your own, and then something goes wrong and it turns into an absolute S show, and you weren't ready for it, and you really didn't know, because it's not your job to know. It's not your job to understand. People go to school for a long time so they can understand, so they can help you when you get stuck. Or they can, say, this is why you wouldn't want to have this, a drug or peptide counteracting, this one. Or, why would you be on tesamorelin and retatrutide at the same time? Like, in my opinion, it makes no sense. Like, can you use them together? Sure you can. But it all is like, what is the dosing time? What's the eating window? And then what are the workouts like? What does the day look like? What does the night look like? Like, it's really that nuanced. It really is. If someone says, no, you're overcomplicating it, or that's just you because you use tesamorelin irresponsibly or something, like, because if you watch a lot of my videos, that's fine. Like, you might be right, but you're not, because it has to do, it's right there, like, all the writing's on the wall. Once you start to, like, read up a lot more about it, or you research more about it, or you look at the case studies about it, the human trials, again, just going back to tesamorelin. If you are pre-diabetic or diabetic, or you have high resting glucose, or your A1C has been consistently high, like, that might not be the drug of the peptide of choice for you. It doesn't mean whether I'm going to use retatrutide. No, we were just talking about, like, why would you use one and not the other? Like, why would you use something that's like spot fat sort of non-HGH effect lipolysis, when you could potentially just get all the benefits from an HGH, assuming you were exercising properly, dosing properly. Also the dosage, also the timing. But if your whole goal was simply just to lose weight and get lean, but you could just control how much muscle you lost by eating protein, lifting weights, being conscientious of how much calories you were eating in a given day by having a little scale and keeping alarm set, then retatrutide or tirzepatide or semaglutide would be the only choice. You see? So there you go. I mean, that's sort of my personal, testimonial of tirzepatide versus retatrutide. And then I threw in, HGH secretagogue, tesamorelin, because I did that too. If you've watched any of my channels, I did TB500 with BPC 157. You also know that the new BPC 157 that I've been using in the last week, I think, is far and away superior, and now I'm all on board. Like, well, BPC 157 alone, and I did the thing very much like what Andrew Huberman said, that he hurt his back and he was injecting, I don't know, into his back or around his back. I was doing subcutaneous into my back, right around the SI joint, sort of the back part of the love handle is still there. And even if it wasn't still there, I would try everything I could to pinch, and I would go in and around that injection, or sorry, the painful or inflamed site. And anytime that I felt I had an acute or exacerbated injury, especially with my back, let alone get some elbow pain today, I'm going to do some shockwave in a minute. That's what I would use. I would BPC 157 from the compounded pharmacy, the sterile, compounded, FDA oversighted, regulated a pharmacy. That's what I would use, and that's what I'm going to continue to use. But when it comes to retatrutide, I probably will go back to that the week after next, and I'm going to update everybody and tell everybody how I've done. But I mean, if you've got problems eating and you want something that's going to work, you've got to, work with somebody to get real compounded, in my opinion, tirzepatide over semaglutide, and you get that GLP-1 like effect, appetite under control with the insulin under control, and get your blood work, get your metabolic markers, and again, this video probably went on a little too long, but there it is. Retatrutide, tirzepatide, semaglutide, testimonial, everything sort of covered in this video. I mean, this is the way it works. This is what it does. These are the results. This is what you can expect. And guys, if you have anything that you ever want to ask, just go ahead and reach out. It's Dr. Pearlman. Thank you.